The blizzard tore across the outskirts of Hollow Pines like a living thing, whipping snow into ragged curtains that swallowed the world whole. Through the white chaos, a shadow moved, low, deliberate, scarred for bristling against the cold. The German shepherd's eyes glowed with a mix of fear and fierce resolve, as if he carried a secret too heavy to share. In his silent vigil, he wasn't alone, but what he was guarding remained unseen, hidden beneath the frozen drift. Somewhere in the storm, a human heartbeat pulsed faintly, fragile and desperate, and for the first time that night, hope seemed both impossible and inevitable. If you enjoy the tension and want to see the story unfold, stick around and subscribe for more thrilling rescues and emotional twists. The wind howled like a living predator, tearing through the skeletal branches that clawed at the frozen sky. Hollow Pines had always been a quiet town, the kind where everyone knew everyone else's business. But tonight, it was a ghost town, blanketed in white and silence. Streetlights flickered under the weight of ice, casting long, trembling shadows across deserted roads. Even the police radio crackled with static, as if the storm itself was intent on swallowing every sound. Officer Nolan Briggs tightened his parka, his breath forming icy clouds that vanished instantly into the blizzard. He had been called out on a routine check after a neighbor reported strange sounds in the woods near the old McAllister farm. But as soon as he stepped outside, he knew this wasn't routine. Something in the air pressed against his chest, a heaviness that made his gut twist with unease. He trudged through snowdrifts that reached his knees, boots sinking with a muffled crunch. His flashlight beam wavered across the endless white, occasionally catching glimpses of broken branches or a deer's frozen form. Then he saw it, a silhouette in the storm, low to the ground, moving with unnatural caution. A dog, a German shepherd, but unlike any he'd seen before. Its fur was mottled with scars, a jagged tapestry of past violence and survival. Yet, beneath the battle-worn exterior, the animal moved with grace and purpose. Its gaze locked onto Briggs the instant their eyes met. Fierce, wary, intelligent. The kind of gaze that could see straight through a person. Briggs approached slowly, hands raised to show he meant no harm. "Hey, boy, it's okay," he called, voice rough with cold intention. The dog didn't move, just lowered its head, growling softly, a warning wrapped in fatigue. Snow whipped across its back, plastering matted fur against ribs that were visible beneath the coat. Something about the dog's stance made Briggs pause. This wasn't just a stray. It was guarding something. And whatever it was, the shepherd would die before letting anyone near it. The sound came then, soft, muffled, almost imperceptible over the storm. A whimper, a human whimper. Briggs froze, scanning the white haze. The dog's ears pricked up, and for a moment it barked, not loud, not frantic, but sharp, commanding. Then it vanished, slipping through snow drifts like a shadow, disappearing toward the old McAllister barn. Briggs cursed under his breath and ran. His boots sank into snow, muscles straining against the cold and wind. The barn loomed ahead, dilapidated and ominous, windows shattered, doors swinging loosely on rusted hinges. He could see movement inside, a dark shape huddled against the floor. And the dog, still alert, still tense, stood between Briggs and the figure. Don't hurt him," Briggs called out, though he didn't know what the dog could understand. The shepherd growled, a low rumble that vibrated through the snow. But then, something unexpected happened. The dog's body shifted subtly, a signal. It wasn't a warning this time. It was an invitation. Inside the barn, Briggs saw a boy, about 10 years old, face pale, lips cracked from the cold, eyes wide with fear. The boy hugged a bundle close to his chest, a small, fragile thing wrapped in a torn blanket. Briggs didn't need to guess. That was what the dog had been protecting. The storm raged harder outside, shaking the barn's thin walls. Briggs moved closer, careful not to spook the dog. "It's okay, kid. You're safe now," he said. The boy's eyes flicked to him, then back to the dog, almost as if he needed reassurance from the scarred guardian before trusting anyone else. The dog barked once, sharply. Then it stepped back, slowly, allowing Briggs a path to the boy. Carefully, Briggs knelt and took the bundle, feeling the faint weight of a newborn in his arms. A baby, tiny, shivering, but alive. How? Briggs whispered, more to himself than anyone else. "How did you survive out here?" The boy, voice trembling, explained between hiccups of cold. I don't know. He found us. He wouldn't let anyone touch him. He saved us." The boy's fingers trembled as they stroked the dog's fur. "He's hurt," he added softly, pointing to the deep scar along the shepherd's side. Briggs's heart clenched. The dog didn't move away. It stayed close, growling only when Briggs carefully scooped the boy into his arms. Its amber eyes never left the bundle in Briggs's hands. It was protective, vigilant, and exhausted all at once. Briggs radioed in for backup, urgency creeping into his tone. "Officer Briggs, McAllister Barn, 2 survivors, 1 child, 1 infant, shepherd dog guarding them, needs immediate assistance." Static answered, then silence. The storm was swallowing everything, even sound. By the time reinforcements arrived, the shepherd had collapsed into the snow, body trembling from cold and wounds. Briggs knelt beside him, pressing gloved hands against the animal's chest. "You did good, buddy. You saved them," he murmured, voice thick. The dog's eyes fluttered, a brief softness breaking to the hard, scarred exterior. The boy climbed onto Briggs's shoulders, clinging to him, still shivering. He's my hero," he said, voice small but certain. Briggs nodded, swallowing against the lump in his throat. There was truth in that statement, more truth than any news story could capture. The storm hadn't ended, but within the barn there was a fragile pocket of warmth. Human and canine, survivor and guardian, bound together by fear, courage, and the unspoken understanding that some heroes wore scars you couldn't see at first glance. As the emergency vehicles neared, light slicing through the blizzard, Briggs caught one last look at the dog, scarred, cold, but unwavering. And in that moment, he realized something he couldn't have known before tonight. Some guardians were silent, some sacrifices were invisible, and sometimes the smallest heartbeat in the coldest night could change everything. If you want to continue the journey of this scarred German Shepherd and the secret he's protecting, hit like and subscribe. You won't believe what comes next. The ambulance's sirens were swallowed by the blizzard, their wails distant and hollow, but inside Briggs's patrol SUV, warmth and urgency collided. The boy, clutching the tiny bundle, leaned against him, shivering despite layers of blankets. The German Shepherd, still scarred and exhausted, sat in the back seat, ears alert, eyes scanning every shadow outside the frosted windows. Briggs couldn't remember a ride so quiet yet so tense. Every creak of the vehicle, every hiss of the heater seemed amplified against the storm's roar. At the hospital, the neon lights felt intrusive, harsh against the darkness that still clung to Briggs's mind. Nurses rushed forward, and the boy was taken from him with careful hands, the infant cradled against a swaddled warmth that Briggs had only just begun to understand. The German Shepherd was gently lifted into a kennel, growling softly at anyone who came near. Briggs lingered by the dog, brushing his gloved hand over its spine. The scars ran deep, old battle wounds layered over more recent gashes. And yet, beneath the grime and ice, the dog's golden eyes held intelligence, loyalty, and a haunting wisdom. "You're safe now, buddy," Briggs murmured, voice low. "You've earned your rest." The dog's tail thumped once against the kennel floor, almost imperceptibly. Then, with a shiver, it settled, muscles relaxing for the first time in what seemed like eternity. Briggs stepped back, but he couldn't leave. Not yet. Questions clawed at him. Who left the boy and the baby in the storm? Why? And why had the shepherd been the only guardian willing to risk everything? The storm outside raged through the night, turning hollow pines into a frozen labyrinth of white. Briggs returned to his apartment, soaked and exhausted, but sleep eluded him. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the dog's amber gaze, the fragile bundle, the barn. Something about the arrangement felt deliberate, not accidental. By morning, the snow had turned to a brittle crust of ice. Briggs was back at the station, filling in reports, answering questions from fellow officers, and trying to piece together the fragments of the previous night. Then Detective Marvos arrived, a woman whose reputation for cold efficiency preceded her. Her eyes scanned the room like a hawk, calculating, assessing. "Officer Briggs," she said, voice clipped but not unkind. I heard about your little rescue. Good work. Her gaze lingered on him longer than necessary, then shifted toward the kennel where the German Shepherd had been moved for examination. And him, he's unusual. The scars alone suggest a violent past, but the behavior, he's not just a stray. Someone trained him. Briggs nodded, brows furrowed. He found him out there, boy and infant. No one else would have survived the storm without him. Mara's lips tightened. And yet someone left him there. That's what concerns me. You don't just leave a child and a newborn in a blizzard. Her eyes flicked to the side, thoughtful, sharp. I want you to retrace the route you took last night. Anything unusual, anything you noticed about the barn or the surroundings. Briggs hesitated. The barn had felt off, not just abandoned, but orchestrated. Objects were moved as if someone had prepared the space, intentionally guiding the dog and the children into specific positions. I'll do it, he said, voice low. But Mara, there's something about that dog. He's more than he seems. Mara's expression softened slightly, almost imperceptibly. I know. That's why I want you involved. He trusts you. And whatever's coming next, you'll need that bond. Hours later, Briggs returned to the barn, now a jagged skeleton in the daylight, wind still cutting through splintered wood. Footprints from the previous night were buried under fresh snow, but subtle clues remained. A deep groove where the dog had dug, shards of a baby's blanket caught in the splintered floor, faint blood trails now frozen solid. Briggs's stomach churned. Whoever had orchestrated this knew the terrain, the storm, and the dog's protective instinct. He followed the path the shepherd had taken, past frozen fields and broken fences, until he reached the edge of the woods. There, half buried under snow, was a small makeshift camp, a hint of recent habitation. Charred wood, scraps of cloth, footprints in the icy mud. Briggs knelt, tracing one with his gloved hand. The prints were small, adult, but oddly deliberate. Whoever had stayed here had planned to leave quickly. Then he saw it, a small carved wooden pendant, half buried in snow. He picked it up. It was a locket, delicate, almost childlike in its engraving. He opened it, and the photograph inside made his heart lurch. The boy asleep and a woman, beautiful, familiar, smiling as if caught in a frozen memory. Briggs's fingers shook. Mara had mentioned missing persons earlier, and suddenly everything snapped together. The storm hadn't just been dangerous. It had been a cover. Someone had left the children intentionally, knowing the shepherd would find them. Briggs's radio crackled. Briggs? We need you back at the station. Something's come up on the surveillance feeds. Back at Hollow Pines PD, Briggs joined Mara and the tech team. Screens flickered, showing security footage from the outskirts of town taken months ago. The same barn, the same broken fences, a man and a woman dragging two children through snow. But there was another figure, scarred, tall, moving silently in the background. The shepherd, not lost, watching, protecting. Mara leaned closer, eyes narrowed. That's him, the dog. He's been guarding them this entire time, before you even knew they existed. Briggs's jaw tightened. Who left them? Mara hesitated, biting her lip. We're not sure, but whoever it was, they wanted the shepherd to find them, not humans. And the scars, someone tried to train him for obedience, for control. But he broke free. He chose to protect, not follow. A chill ran down Briggs's spine. The dog wasn't just a survivor. He was a rebel, a guardian with agency, morality, and judgment that no human had taught him. That night, Briggs returned to the kennel, watching the shepherd sleep. Amber eyes flickered open, meeting his. No growl, no tension, just understanding. He reached through the bars, brushing a gloved hand along the dog's back. The scars pressed against his fingers. Suddenly, the kennel door banged. A man appeared, soaked and wind-torn, eyes wide with desperation. That dog, he's mine, he shouted. He's mine, and those kids, they belong to me. Briggs moved instinctively between the man and the dog. Back off. You had a chance to protect them, and you didn't. He did. You failed. The man's face twisted. You don't understand. You don't know the stakes. Mara stepped forward, voice calm but icy. We understand perfectly. You left them out in a blizzard. You gambled with their lives. And this dog saved them. You're done. The man's shoulders slumped, rage and fear warring in his expression. They weren't supposed to be like this. It was supposed to be temporary. His voice cracked. I couldn't. Briggs's fist clenched. The truth was dawning. Betrayal ran deep. Whoever this man was, he had broken trust, abandoned the innocent, and yet somehow expected the shepherd comply. But the dog had chosen differently. Outside, the storm had finally begun to ease, snowflakes falling lazily now instead of driven by rage. The shepherd shifted in the kennel, muscles relaxing. Briggs knelt beside him. You made the right choice, buddy, he whispered. The dog's eyes met his, steady and unflinching. Some secrets, Briggs realized, could only be revealed through survival, and some guardians were beyond human control. But the night was far from over. Somewhere in the shadows of hollow pines, a plan that had been set in motion months ago was still unfolding, and the shepherd, scarred, vigilant, and loyal, would be the only one standing between innocence and a truth that was darker than anyone could imagine. If the twists, secrets, and the dog's fierce loyalty keep your heart racing, stay with us. Like and subscribe to follow the story to its shocking climax. You won't see the ending coming. The storm had finally lifted, leaving hollow pines buried under a brittle, sparkling crust of snow. The world felt quieter now, but that calm was deceptive, the kind of calm that precedes a reckoning. Briggs stood outside the hospital, gloved hands gripping the SUV door, eyes tracing the distant tree line. Somewhere out there, decisions made months ago were converging tonight. Inside, the boys slept, curled against the infant in a cot provided by the nurses. The shepherd rested nearby in a large kennel, muscles coiled even in slumber, amber eyes flicking open at the faintest sound. Briggs had spent the morning checking on them, making calls, and digging into hollow pines' dark corners. The man who had abandoned the children, now in custody, was uncooperative, and yet cracks were appearing in his facade. Mara Voss entered, her expression unreadable as always, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of concern. He's not telling everything. We know he wasn't alone. Someone else orchestrated this. Briggs's stomach tightened. And the dog? He's been with the kids all this time, watching, protecting. How far back does this go? Mara shook her head. We don't know, but based on the surveillance footage and town rumors, the shepherd has been shadowing them for months. He was trained for obedience, yes, but he chose loyalty. He chose protection over submission. That's rare. That's remarkable. Briggs crouched by the kennel, brushing a hand along the dog's spine. You saved them. All of them. He paused. I don't know how to thank you enough. The dog's tail thumped lightly, a slow, deliberate heartbeat of acknowledgement. It wasn't pride, but understanding, the kind of bond that doesn't need words. The afternoon light waned, and with it, Briggs sensed a shift. The man in custody had lawyered up, but he left a single lead, a name whispered in desperation and fear, Morgan. A shadowy figure in Hollow Pines history, known for manipulation and cruelty, someone who'd been operating behind the town's innocent facades. Briggs felt it immediately. This was the person who had left the children to the storm, calculated every risk, and thought a dog could be controlled like a tool. Mara and Briggs followed the lead to a decrepit cabin on the outskirts, hidden in a grove of pines still frosted with ice. The air smelled faintly of smoke and decay, and the windows were dark, sealed with heavy curtains. Briggs dismounted, hand on his sidearm, but he knew instinctively that brute force wouldn't work here. This confrontation required patience, caution, and leverage. The shepherd walked beside him as they approached, moving silently, scanning every shadow. Briggs admired the dog's presence, the way its body moved like liquid, controlled and precise, each scar a testament to survival. It wasn't just protection, it was strategy. Inside the cabin, Morgan awaited, a tall figure, sharp-featured, exuding confidence that bordered on arrogance. "Ah, Officer Briggs," Morgan said, voice smooth, calm. "And the famous shepherd. I wondered how long it would take before you caught up." Briggs stepped forward. "Where are the others? The children you left to die in the storm?" Morgan smiled, a thin, cruel line. Die? No, I was teaching him resilience. The shepherd? He's remarkable. But you see, loyalty can be manipulated. Obedience can be broken. I was curious how far his devotion would go. Curiosity, sometimes lethal. The hair on Briggs's neck stood on end. He glanced at the shepherd, amber eyes locked with his body tense, every muscle coiled like a spring. The dog's growl was low, resonant, controlled, but warning enough to Morgan. You won't harm him again, Briggs said, voice steady, though inside, rage simmered. Morgan's gaze shifted toward the dog, calculating. And what about him? He's special. I could use him, teach him, refine him. Together we could achieve so much. Briggs felt his hand tighten on the weapon. He's not yours. He never was. The moment stretched, taut and dangerous, and then Morgan lunged, not at Briggs, but at the kennel, trying to pull the dog toward him. But the shepherd was faster. A leap, precise and controlled, sent Morgan sprawling across the floor, scraping hands and ego against the wooden boards. Briggs ran in, grabbing Morgan's arm, twisting it until he was immobilized. The dog's teeth were bared, close enough to show intent but never harming, commanding, controlling, protective. You see, Briggs said, voice low and calm, this isn't just loyalty. This is love. This is instinct. And it doesn't belong to you. Morgan's defiance faltered. His arrogance cracked, leaving only fear. He's not like any animal I've ever trained. Briggs shook his head. He's not an animal. He's family. The confrontation ended quickly after that. Morgan was taken into custody, facing charges far beyond negligence, conspiracy, child endangerment, and illegal animal manipulation. The town of Hollow Pines, insulated and quiet for so long, had been shaken to its core. Weeks later, the hospital was calm. The boy had returned home with distant relatives who had been located, the infant safely in foster care, both thriving. The shepherd rested nearby, scarred body finally at ease, eyes occasionally flicking toward Briggs as if to remind him, I've done my part. Briggs knelt by the kennel, brushing snow from the dog's coat, revealing the scars in detail. Each one told a story, survival, loyalty, sacrifice. And yet in his gaze, Briggs saw something more, resilience, love, a silent understanding that life, no matter how harsh, could still be defended with courage. The boy visited once a week, slowly warming to Briggs and the shepherd, bringing toys, treats, and stories of school. One afternoon, the boy asked quietly, will he always be with us? Briggs looked down at the shepherd, who cocked his head, amber eyes warm, vigilant, and calm. As long as he wants to be, Briggs said. The boy nodded, understanding more than words could convey. Some guardians weren't meant to be owned. They were meant to protect, to love, and to teach lessons no human could articulate. Winter receded, melting into spring. Hollow Pines returned to its quiet rhythm, though some stories never faded. Briggs often walked the fields near McAllister Barn, remembering the night the storm almost claimed innocence and how a scarred German shepherd had rewritten fate. Sometimes in the distance, he would see a shadow moving through the trees, silent and purposeful, and he would smile, knowing the guardian was still watching, still protecting, still loyal. And on a warm afternoon, with snow long gone and flowers pushing to the thawed earth, Briggs finally understood. Heroism didn't always roar. Sometimes it was quiet. Sometimes it was scarred. Sometimes it was a heartbeat beneath a blanket, a gaze beneath a fur coat, a life preserved in silence. The shepherd had chosen, and that choice had changed everything. If this story left your heart racing and your emotions raw, don't forget to like and subscribe for more tales where loyalty, courage, and the unexpected heroes of our world shine. Some guardians aren't human, and some hearts are worth every risk.